My name is Dr. Ash Goddard. I'm a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. My practice name is 9 Acupuncture and Chinese Herbal Medicine in Bellingham, Washington. The way the system works together and works with our environment. And within that, each of the 5 elements are associated with a season. And I know there are only 4 seasons, but we'll get to that. And talk about maybe what we can do as we embrace autumn. Sound good? All right. So one of the very basic ideas, not only in Chinese medicine, but all of, Chinese theory is the idea of yin and yang, right? So we know that yin and yang symbol, it's the white and the dark, and there's a little bit of the dark and the white, and a little bit of dark in the, or white and the dark. And there's a way of, anything in the world can be broken down into, is it more yin or is it more yang, right? So is the daytime is more yang, it's the yang part of the day, nighttime is more yin, and so forth. We don't have to go too deep into that, but it's an important idea because within that concept of yin and yang, we also have expansion, and that's a yang feeling, and there's contraction, which is a yin feeling. So say the growth of the tree in spring is a pretty yang. That's when the yang starts to rise in the seasons, and then in summer that yang really starts to flourish, and then in the fall we start to get more of a contraction, right? And the energy begins to go inward. That's why the energy, say in a tree, again using that metaphor, the energy starts to descend. The trees drop their leaves and so forth, and then winter we go into a deeper, the deepest yin state. So there's always that expansion and contraction, and you can't have one without the other, just like you can't have good without bad, you can't have night without day. There are all these cycles, and those cycles happen in our bodies, and they also happen in the planet, in the cosmos. And in Chinese medicine, the very first chapter of our very most important book, the original acupuncture text, it's called the Huangdi Neijing, and it was synthesized around 4,000 years ago, so a very long time ago. And around 2,500 years ago was when the written book came out. And so it took them a couple hundred years and many, many doctors to talk about it, to write about it. But the first thing it begins with is how we are connected to our planet and to what happens in the climate and the environment around us, which makes for an interesting talk right now with climate change and all of that, and how that's going to continue to affect us. So that atmosphere, there's an expansion and a contraction in the universe too. And if you know anything about physics and all of that, that makes a lot of sense. So when we try to break it down into yin and yang again, like I said, we can break anything down into yin and yang. The heavens are more yang, and the earth is more yin, and we're sort of in the interim, in the mix between those two. Everyone still with me? Okay. So just like that atmosphere there's this balance always going on. We think again about expansion and contraction, and if I was in person, I'd call on someone to ask maybe how that looks in the human body. But we think about breathing, right? So there's an expansion and a contraction, right? We inhale, we exhale, and that's a constant movement for us. And again, it's that motion. So it's really that breath that we say stimulates the movement or the motion in our bodies. So the heart's obviously important, and we think of that a lot as pushing blood through, and it might be distracting to think of that as motion, but really it's the lungs that move the system, and the heart just sets the timing. But the heart's super important, obviously. Everything's important. We call the heart the emperor, but it's really the dynamic of the lungs that is so important. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. So within the body, we have the channel system. Some people call it acupuncture meridians. I think the field is getting away from calling them meridians because it was sort of a poor translation. So we like to think of them more as channels. So that channel system flows like a river system through the body. It originates deeply underground, just like a deep underground river, like the Mississippi bubbles up from the ground and becomes this big beautiful river with all these tributaries and eventually to the delta. So while we have this river system that starts underground, deep in our organs, and then surfaces to the body, and then because it's a closed system, so instead of it just running out to some delta, it actually returns. So there's a way that we understand that system works in Chinese medicine, just like we understand the circulatory system, so our blood vessels and so forth, and our nervous system, so our brain and spinal cord and peripheral nerves and so forth. We also have, and our musculoskeletal system, so muscles and tendons and ligaments. We also have this other system that acupuncturists know about. But what's really interesting is that modern science is starting to catch up, and continually over the last decade or so, we'll see these confirmations we've been seeing confirmations start to happen where they confirm what we've known in Chinese medicine for a long time. A few years ago, they found this level of connective tissue. They're finally able to see and understand a layer in the fascia and how it works. This is modern science, and for a very long time, we've been saying in Chinese medicine that there's some other way that these channels are communicating in the body, and I personally think that a lot of it is through fascia. Does everyone here know what fascia is? Can I get a few hands up? So fascia is a connective tissue. It surrounds all our muscles, all our bones, all our organs. It's what allows our skin to move, So if we didn't have something between our layers of tissue, things would just adhere to one another. So the fascia is really important just in any kind of movement in the body. But a really interesting thing is the fascia is one continuous sheet. It's all connected. So there's some wonderful books if you really want to go down a rabbit hole about fascia and how it works. But I truly believe that that specialized connective tissue is say the riverbed of how Chinese medicine and acupuncture works in the body. So back to this, I'm going to bounce back and forth a little bit, but it'll all come together. So back to the idea of motion. We need to move, and the why is so wonderful. I know you guys must be sad not to be able to get there as readily as you have been, and they have such wonderful programming because when you move, sometimes it's not like you have to do strength training or anything. You just have to move, right? So what is essential to a human body's health or an animal body's health is for the body to be able to move. And we say that illness occurs when something in our bodies becomes fixed or blocked off. It could be by outside injury. It could be by the effects of the climate around us, injury from improper diet or lifestyle, or even emotions. Sometimes emotions cause us to behave in certain ways that block us also. So one metaphor I like to give that's a little bit easier to understand for my patients is I treat a lot of pain in my practice. So you picture, a mudslide, like the Oso mudslide that happened several years ago, south of us, right? And so all of a sudden it just blocked up this river, and this beautiful river that had been flowing freely all of a sudden started backing up, and it has consequences further downstream. It has consequences upstream, and you slowly go in and you have to try to remove those blockages. So that may be the easiest way to think about it. May be a trauma. So in that damage has occurred, you have to go back and try to fix it. In some ways, the body will figure out ways around it, but it will never be as efficient as getting that original channel flowing. So, if we think about it that way, it could be an acute trauma. It could be scars or something like that. I treat a lot of scars in my practice, actually, or like I said, emotional blockages. Like even Sometimes when we get stressed, we don't breathe. We don't hold our breath. I have patients come in sometimes, and I can see that they're just not holding they're just not really breathing, or they're just breathing from their chest. When you see a baby breathe, their belly's moving and expanding. That moves that diaphragm, and that helps the whole system stay healthy. So that's one way that the emotions can block us up a little bit too. So moving on to the next part of, so that's the channel system. The next part is another way of understanding how they all work together, is what we call the 5 elements. And some of you may have heard of these. And these correspondences, let me see if I can share my screen real quick. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see if this works. There we go. All right, can everyone see that? Okay, so this is a real simplification of how we might look at the body. And if you look under here, the second line, the first and second lines, sorry, both talk about some different organs. So the liver is up here at the top, and the gallbladder is its paired organ. The liver is the more important one, and the more important of the two exists at the top all the way around. Can you see my pointer? Okay, so the top one is wood, and fire, earth, metal, and water. And if you look under here, each of them have a number of correspondences. This is really just a fraction of the correspondences that we look at. But we're going to jump down here to metal, because we're going to talk most about metal today. And metal is related to the lung and large intestine. And you'll see right here under number 7, it's very small. That is autumn. So that's the season that we're in right now. So this system, this cycle that goes around here, we call the creation cycle or engendering cycle. And just like, so we need water to grow wood or plants, right? We need wood to burn fire. From fire creates earth, right? The ash that comes from fire creates earth. And then we can mine minerals and metals and so forth from earth. So those come from the earth. And then metal, again, enriches our water. So that's an overview of how that system works. But we also can use that system to help create health as we move forward. So right now, say I have a patient, I'm up here in the water area, so this relates to winter. Say I have a patient that has asthma that's really bad in the winter. Well, now's the best time to work on it, is because it's before it really starts to get too weak, so we might work on it in this time. And sure enough, speaking of asthma, we relate it to the lungs and the large intestine. So it's a good time to work on that, and you can back that all the way around. So we overlay this also with the channel system. So I may, if I want to affect something in one element, I can use another element to help boost it or help control it. All right, I'm going to stop screen sharing, and I'll have that resource for you all as well. Okay, am I back? Yes. So let's talk about autumn. And this talk's going a lot faster than I expected. So the autumn is, each element is related to an emotion or an action. We talk about the leaves falling and turning inward, but it's also about letting go, thinking of like leaves turning color and dropping to the earth. And if we look at the organs associated with it, that's the lungs and the large intestine. And the large intestine is very easy to understand, right? How it is letting things go from our body. And the lungs, take in fresh air and expel the carbon dioxide that we don't need. So if we think about this time of year, take that in, take that idea in and think about, cleaning out your closets and getting rid of the things that no longer serve you. And in fact, the emotion that's associated with autumn is grief. So in that letting go, you also need to grieve it. And grief is okay. All the emotions are okay. In Chinese medicine, we say that the only time the emotions cause problems is when we really either fight them and try to avoid them, or when we linger too long in them. So we want you to experience all the emotions in the correct amplitude and duration that they should be experienced. So it's okay to grieve. It's okay to have all of that. You know, now's a good time to go do your spring cleaning. Spring cleaning should actually occur in the fall. So we also, in autumn, you know, the autumn or the metal element is associated with our sense of self-worth and our contribution. And it may manifest as a need for outward recognition, but also having some poor self-talk. Those are all, you know, things that this element struggles with, or not struggles with, but deals with. So, you know, see how those things show up in your life right now. And if you have old grievances and so forth, now's a good time to you know, work through those and let those go. And it frees you up for the dark winter ahead, as everyone's saying. So things to restore metal, to restore that energy of metal in your life. Certainly, you know, seeking acupuncture treatment is always nice. Also, maybe doing counseling if you do have, you know, some emotional stuff that you want to deal with. The biggest one I think for me is get outside and breathe. You know, we don't want to overexert though, because right, this is the time that things we need to start turning our energy inward. Like get out and breathe fresh air every day if you can. You know, take note of the seasonal change that's going on. I mean, it's such a beautiful weekend, and I think you have to get out today because I think it's supposed to start raining. Also, you know, do Qigong if you can. I'm going to give you a resource in just a moment for that. And, you know, when you feel sad or stuck, remember that just like the seasons, this is going to pass too. It's also a nice time to cleanse your body, you know, after the bounty of summer and, you know, how young that is and how busy we all are, starting to you know, calm our diet down a little bit. We're going to start eating more root vegetables and more squash and things like that. Really things that start to consolidate our energy a little bit better. And mushrooms, I'm a big fan of mushrooms. So if you want resources on mushrooms, I can put those up to you. But I do want to share just two things. I'm going to share my screen again. So this fella, oops, that's the wrong one. So this, this is a link, and so at about 1710, if you're taking notes, is when he gets into a, I was hoping we'd have time today, we aren't going to. He gets into just a really gentle daily practice you can do. It only takes a couple of minutes. I'm going to mute him.
Start by wrapping.
But this will walk you through just a really nice Qigong routine that you can do just to simulate that lung energy. And this man, his name is Peter Dedman, and he wrote one of my very, very favorite books. And 20 some years of being in studying Chinese medicine, he wrote this book called Live Well, Live Long. And I'll also put the link up for that in just a moment. And it is for the layperson, but it's also for the practitioner. I actually have it at home. I read it all the time. It has a lot of modern studies kind of confirming what we've been talking about in Chinese medicine for a long time. And then one other book that's really nice is Rhythms of Change. This is by my mentors, one of my main mentors' wives. Well, he only has one wife, his wife. And it's Reclaiming Your Health Using Ancient Wisdom and Your Own Common Sense. And it's also a really nice resource to have. Okay, I'm going to switch back. Okay, that went by so much faster. I could talk about Chinese medicine all day. But I don't see any questions in the chat box yet, but I'm happy to answer any if you have the questions, because we have just about 7 minutes left.
Okay, so I've allowed you guys to unmute if you want to ask a question, but keep in mind we want to make sure that we're not talking over other people.
How do we contact you if we wish to have a consultation, please?
Oh, sure. I will put my email address right here. This is the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Sure.
And that has all my information. Anything you need to know about.
9needles.com.
And this is,
Thank you.
oh, you bet.
And we will put that with the YouTube recording as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, good.
And I'm giving you some resources here as well. Any info about other seasons? Yes, I have lots of info about other seasons. Just briefly, you know, water is winter, and spring is, that's the wood element. And then the wood element switches over to, in summer, that's fire. That makes sense, right? And then we have a special season in Chinese medicine called late summer. And that is earth. And that's if you think of earth, and that's when the harvest begins and so forth. So each of those have a number of correspondences. Winter, you know, again, there's a calming. We spend a lot more time inside. It's cold out. We have to protect ourselves from the cold. We relate it to the kidneys. So eating some salt, but don't overdo it. Not overdoing the salt, you know, is important. That's the flavor associated with winter. And then when spring comes and everything starts to expand again, but we want to embrace that feeling. So we start getting out, moving again, you know, lots of stretching and eating what's in season, you know, like early like dandelion greens and spring nettles and things like that. So it's, you know, we have the luxury now of living where, you know, I can get you know, anything I want. I can get pineapple in the middle of December, right? So it's not necessarily how we should be eating. So always try to think about what would we be eating if we didn't have these beautiful grocery stores to shop in, and erring on that side of food for our diets. Would acupuncture help circulation, particularly to the feet? Yeah, I see a lot of people for circulation issues, neuropathy issues, and people have, by and large, pretty good results. The longer a patient has been suffering with the condition, typically the longer it's going to take to resolve. So when we talk about circulation issues, you know, circulation is really the very foundation of health. So when it is impaired, you know, it can start to impair a lot of other things, and it may be a little bit harder to get it to move. If someone comes in, you know, with a sprained ankle, they generally walk out feeling better. If someone comes in, you know, and they can't feel their toes, it's going to take a little bit longer to resolve. Let's see. Is there any relationship between the month in which one is born and the seasons in terms of Chinese medicine? Well, you know, there's a whole arm of Chinese medicine that is Chinese astrology. It is very complex. I don't do it. One of my main mentors does it, and I try to pay attention. It is so complicated. So yes, and I don't know anything about it. Any kind of acupressure points helpful for calming stress, such as what we're experiencing this week? That's a very good question. So I don't know if you've ever heard, well, I don't want to go too far down that road, but yes. So one thing you could do, I think breathing is probably the biggest thing, and making sure you're moving your belly. There's a point right here, your third eye. We call this yin tong, and tapping gently on that point is very helpful. Here, just inside the hairline. So if you have hair, so just, or where your hairline used to be, about, you know, maybe half an inch in. There's a point there, and if you have hair, it's harder to tap, but rubbing that one is one of my favorite points for anxiety. A really great thing you can do is just pull on your ears. So the ears are like let me see. I wonder if you can see this. I'm going to show you a really cool picture. So this is an ear chart. Can you see that? And the whole body is reflected in your ear. So your head is down here. This is your spine. This is your arm. This is your leg. So, and all your internal organs are in here. So a really great thing you can do all the time is just pull on your ears. It sounds funny, I know, but our ears should be nice and supple. They should, sometimes when people have this really hard ears, just rub on them and do that for a minute or two, and I guarantee it will make you feel a little bit better. Let's see. I don't see any more questions. Does anyone else want to ask me anything? Look at that, it's 9:44.
Perfect. All right. Excellent. Thank you so much, Ash. Could you, so I think, is there anybody else that has questions? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, we so appreciate you coming on today. I'm going to go ahead and let everybody unmute so they can say thank you.
Thank you. Very
Thank you.
informative.
Thank you. That was very interesting.
That was
It
great.
was very good.
Very, very.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all.
Appreciate it. Well done.